the draft was the big story of this week. And so I want to recap both days here. Night one, I think the big movers were Braun Breaker and Kiana James, Alba Fire, and Isla Dawn to Raw, while SmackDown, Carmelo Hayes, Cedric Alexander, and Ashanti the Adonis, and Baron Corbin were the ones that moved over or changed where they were at. Where night two, it was Raw getting Braun Strowman, the LWO, Ilya Dragunov, and Lyra Valkyria, and a Final Testament. SmackDown getting Shinsuke, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, and Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, DIY, and Blair Davenport. Those are the changes. Of course, more picks were made, but those are the ones where people moved around. So a couple moves here, some changes. Justin, the big gripe I seem to have seen on social media is that there wasn't a lot of big name changes, but there was, I guess, actual number of people, lots of changes. What were your thoughts on the draft? What would you have liked to have seen done differently? What did you like about it this time? Any thoughts?
Well, the draft, first off, the draft does not need to be spread out over 2 shows. It's very weird. I understand doing it just after WrestleMania because that's when the WWE calendar kind of resets. So from that timeline standpoint, it makes sense. But when you have night 1 on a Friday, night 2 on a Monday, then we have this Friday SmackDown, followed by a PLE the next day, and then the rosters get locked in the following Monday. It's just, it makes things, I think, a little bit too complicated. I think make it clean cut. Have it be one night, whether it's on Raw, whether it's on SmackDown, whether you do a special that you film, whether it's live or completely pre-produced, and whether it's out of the PC, whether it's out of the new fancy headquarters in Stanford, whatever, do something one night. Probably can do it in an hour, 90 minutes at most, depending on how much, production and interviews and such you want to put into it. I don't really like it going over these 2 nights of Raw, Friday Night SmackDown and Monday Night Raw, because I feel like it makes these shows, you're kind of creatively blocked into a certain point because you're not going to start anything just yet too much fresh, unless the 2 guys are remaining on that brand. And I don't know, it's just kind of but what I took away from this was I like seeing where everybody is splitting up. I know some people's complaints were, oh, this is too many picks if they're just remaining where they are. Well, yeah, but I think it's nice to see where everybody's at because it's nice to see, okay, what they're going to continue with. I like the fact that Gable was drafted but remains with Otis, Maxine, so we know we're going to continue on to that. I like the fact that, Kaiser was drafted with Gunther to let us know that they're going to stay associated. And then I get excited to see what names, go to SmackDown because I'm mapping out the next 6 to 9 months of who could be potential title matches for Cody Rhodes. That, and immediately I get excited when I see Randy Orton's on the same brand with Cody and what they could do there. And the same thing over in Raw. Gunther's there. They draft Dragunov, and you start thinking about Priest and all, and Logan Paul, and so it's a very administrative kind of thing. It was very administrative. We were just kind of watching play out, or watching Triple H and his team separate the rosters, but they just happened to put it on television. I don't think it was the most exciting. Cameos are fine. Great to see Stephanie, Dudley's, etc. It was what it was, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting to the PLE and then getting to next Monday where we can officially move forward in this with these new rosters.
Yeah, I kind of echo everything Justin said. I think if you're going to call it a draft, they should make it a draft to make it feel more like a draft instead of what they do now. In fact, I would rather they do something like Raw is going to pick 3 people from SmackDown and 1 person from NXT. SmackDown is going to pick 3 people from Raw and 1 person from NXT instead of a draft. Because Jimmy, I think that I get that, like, if you're Raw, you want to pick Seth Rollins early because he's great, but since he's already there, just from a TV perspective, it's very boring. It's uninteresting to see. And so I feel like even from a production standpoint, even if that's what you're going to do, you should at least front load some exciting picks to start. So, like, oh, this is crazy, instead of Bianca Belair staying on SmackDown, Seth Rollins staying on Raw. You know what I mean? It just felt very, I don't know. There were changes. It just didn't feel very spicy as I was watching it.
No, I agree with that, because I was watching it as well, and seeing the percentage of talent that actually switched brands was low. It was somewhere around 1/3, if that, that actually switched teams, so to speak. So I would have liked to seen a little more jazz. See, Justin said something that really made me think, where make it special, make it a one-night thing, kind of like they did with the kickoff show to WrestleMania, where they did it in one night. Just have it dedicated strictly to the draft, nothing else. Make it like war rooms, like they do in the NFL, that sort of thing. I remember back in the day, we had I think it was the original draft, where they had the Raw locker room, all in their red Raw t-shirts, all sitting down waiting to see what happens, and the SmackDown team in the SmackDown locker room waiting to see who's going to get drafted and that sort of thing. I kind of like that, because it makes you think, look, okay, we may be against each other out there in the ring, but this is our locker room. This is Raw. This is our team. We don't want to leave our team. And if anybody's going to go, sayonara, all thoughts to you. But again, like you said, Jack, it just felt uneventful, underwhelming. Maybe it was my expectations. I was expecting a lot from this. And like you said, no real huge names change. But I get it with the champions. You don't want to just flip champions just for the sake of flipping champions from one brand to the other. So that's all. I was fine with that. But you had some names underneath that could have gone somewhere else to set up some rivalries, like Justin said, Frith, Cody, something with Damian Priest down the line. So I don't know. I'm in the wait and see mode right now, but as far as the way it was presented, I'm kind of like, okay, that was all right.
The other thing with the draft, with WWE's draft, is that they try to mock it after kind of like the NFL draft, right, or a major sports draft, which with that's all about having new athletes coming into the league. This is just essentially lining everybody up at recess and just who's picking on whose team here. I know that they like to save new signings and surprises for the Royal Rumble, for the night after Mania, or in the case of a Tama Tonga, for a situation that makes sense. I get it, and more often than not, that's going to be the bigger impact for the talent. But I also think if you want to make the draft have a little bit more credibility and make it, since it's an annual event, make it something that people look forward to, take some people that the company, that the audience didn't know the company had signed, or even free agents. Sean Spears returned to the company in NXT, 2 months ago. And it wasn't, to the best of my knowledge, it was not public knowledge that he was done with AEW. I don't think it was, or even if it was, you still just, rather than have him show up at NXT and did you really need the creative he's been in the last 2 months? I mean, it's not that it's bad, but it's not like it's what's holding NXT together. That would have been a bigger impact if all of a sudden one of the GMs said, and Sean Spears or whatever. And it's like, here's a guy who the audience has seen before. Oh, wow, he's gone, or he's with the other company, now he's back. Make that a big deal. Or, again, they touted that they had signed Jade Cargill in the fall. We got all kinds of headlines. We saw little cameos of her, but then we got her in the Rumble that she didn't win. And then they randomly put her in a match 8 days out of WrestleMania, which that felt really kind of thrown away. And so it's like, that would have been another one. If they would have been able to keep it under wraps to Jade Cargill, or at least have people speculating but not quite sure, and then announce in the draft to Jade Cargill. So I just think that there's opportunity there that they don't do. And I think my last thing with the draft that I struggle with, and this might be a sore spot to Jimmy because he was once, firmly on the blue line. They've forever in the last 20 years, ever since they bought WCW and ECW, they've tried to manufacture internal competition. I don't know I've never met one wrestling fan that said, screw SmackDown, I'm only going to Raw, or screw Raw, I'm only going to SmackDown.
Right.
It's not like this is, no, this is not that kind of deal. Mm-hmm. This is not like some long-standing feud. If anything, again, now because you have other competition in the market, AEW, Ring of Honor, TNA, whatever. If anything, again, the fans are for the company. So I have a hard time getting all geeked up like we're going to see some measurement or score, other than, I guess, War Games and Survivor Series, of SmackDown's doing better.
Yeah.
It's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and I wish, because there's not really, the way it's set up, I don't really know what the value of each individual wrestler is, especially when there's stables and tag teams together. And I get that it's going to be a storyline thing, but how am I supposed to believe that Drew McIntyre was picked so late in the draft for no reason? And I don't know. There's just certain things, and maybe I'm reading into it too much, but it doesn't feel like a real draft, because people who aren't there, this draft would go in a different order, I think, if we were supposed to act like these are all real picks.
True.
Braun Strowman hasn't been on TV in months. Why is he picked ahead of so many other people? You know what I mean? So that I get there's a little bit of a surprise to it, but also if it's a draft, don't you feel like you can get him later? Why are you reaching for him at this point? But at the same time, I don't know. There's just a lot of weird stuff there. I guess, Jimmy, my last thing on the draft here is as far as how it played out. I think my biggest concern is there's some good mixing. I'm excited to see how some of these people play out. I feel like Raw right now, though, really could have used some spicier, bigger names because a lot of their top guys, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, they're hurt and they're not available right now. And I feel like, I think SmackDown could have parted with like an LA Knight or a Randy Orton or an AJ Styles or somebody to give that world title scene a little bit more ammunition. Because right now, if Damian Priest gets to Jey Uso, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of top guys for him to go after next or to go after him.
No, that's the other thing too. You got to look at who's going to be challenging and being in the top positions. Like you said, Randy Orton would have been good, but I know a lot of people are thinking, boy, would him turning be a nice little thing for Cody Rhodes down the road somewhere in the future to challenge him on the SmackDown side. But looking on the Raw side, who do we have other than Jey Uso that we think is, a contender? CM Punk is already, it's a given. Him and Drew McIntyre are the first feud when he gets back into action and he's cleared to go. So that's it. We know that's going to happen there. And that can drag on for a while. That's a money feud. That's a money feud. But you need money feud with Damian Priest. Can you do it with someone like, maybe you do flip an AJ Styles. That would have been good. But he's in that match against Cody at the pay-per-view. So if you draft him over, then people are automatically, are they going to tune out of the match and go, I know this is going to be a good match, but we know he's not going to win because he's already going over to the other guys. That kind of thing. You put that thought in people's minds. But at least I will say this with regards to someone like a Drew McIntyre, like you said, Jack, where how can you realistically believe that somebody would take him so low in the draft? And you're right about that. But at least he was kind of able to kind of spin it into a positive and come out and cut that promo where I can't believe you waited this long to draft me. 4th round on the second night. Are you kidding me? That sort of thing. And then having Punk come out and do all that, which we're going to talk about later. But still, at least he tried to turn it into a positive, which he's brilliant at. And again, going back to what we talked about our first point, which is why they need a guy like Drew McIntyre on that roster. Yeah,
it's because a lot of people, and I know some people have said like Gunther and stuff, but because Priest has to retain a couple of times, and so I don't want Gunther to go against him because I think the next person's got to lose to Priest also. But none of the, I guess Braun Strowman maybe, but even that's kind of like, oh, he just came back and now he's a world title contender.
You could toss Mysterio, you could toss Ray to Priest, and that's fine.
True.
That's a credible match, but Ray can easily lose, no problem.
That's fair because Ray's also a legend, so like it's always acceptable.
I mean, that's the challenge. That's the challenge here, and it's applicable pretty much for all the champions. Whether you're talking Cody and Priest, whether you're talking Logan Paul and Sami Zayn, like you really don't. It's hard to imagine, any of them losing at in the first month or two. Like they all it was such a big deal that Sami dethrones Gunther. It was such a big deal that Cody finally dethrones Roman. Priest cashing in after all this time. So it's like, you kind of have to almost find a few challengers for the first few months that is interesting enough on the marquee to make people tune in, but knowing that they're just going to be just the victims to add up on the resume, on the title resume for the champion. It's like I'm not even considering Cody Rhodes even in danger of losing his title, barring injury. I'm not even considering it until SummerSlam. Anything you give me between now and then, it's just not happening. Sorry.
At minimum. At minimum, because even then it's like, I could see him going longer than SummerSlam too, and that's a lot of them. We got really
quick. Really quick, because looking at the list, when you look at the list, sometimes the things get sparked up. Like I look at a name like LA Knight, you don't see LA Knight challenging Cody Rhodes because there's hugely over baby faces, 2 of your top baby faces. So maybe an LA Knight transferring over to Raw would have been a good deal. Because somewhere down the road,
been a good move.
That was one of my biggest things going into the draft. Is I thought you need to have LA Knight be on the exact opposite, furthest way apart from Cody.
Right. No, I agree.
Unless they think the LA Knight train has hit its peak and then you turn him heel.
Not yet. No, I don't.
I don't think so. I don't want to do that now, but that's unless that's the thought.
But then if you do that, then you run the risk. You turn him, you turn Randy Orton. That's two guys you want to turn just to go after Cody. But the other name that stands out to me, I'm looking at Baron Corbin, because he's like regenerated himself down in NXT. Him not going over to Raw is a good move. I like him on SmackDown because then he's a potential contender, and I think he's a guy who could make a legitimate threat to Cody Rhodes, a believable threat, at least anyways.
I think he can. They're going to have to heat him up a little bit first, though.
Right.
He's going to need a few months of long-term
some
dubs.
Yes.
Yeah.